Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome to celebrating the year that Padre was born.
Well, celebrate, really.
Yes.
Commemorate, whichever way you want to look at it. But this is not 1944, it's 1981. Top 10 albums of 1981. Right, so we'll come to that in a minute. How are you both? You both doing all right?
Yeah, I mean, everything prattles along at a standard pace.
What, at the start of a new
We
year when everything's dark and miserable and
exactly, yes,
you know,
and the only thing we have to be excited about is new album announcements and releases, and think, oh, actually, it is worth like continuing through the dull grey.
yeah, we're out of the long grass now, aren't we? So it's starting to gather pace, like tour announcements, album announcements, new singles, all of that starting to come out now. So it's almost like spring is already
And it's my
starting to
birthday
arrive.
soon.
Exactly. So
So
yeah,
there you go.
yeah, and you look good for 55, to be fair to you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's it. It's all about headbanging.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. It warms up the neck, isn't it? Holy man, how's the Middle East?
It's a shit show. It's a powder keg waiting to explode.
You can't,
Um,
you can't use words like that in the Middle East.
Wednesday, 600 students caught conjunctivitis, so I've not worked since
Fucking
Wednesday.
hell.
Got next week off too.
Do they all sleep in the
Um,
same bed or something?
Mm.
no, they've been sharing scarves and stuff like that,
God, fucking
wrapping
hell,
them around their
that's
heads.
horrible.
I bet they didn't see that
Um,
coming.
they've what they've done is there's one copy of No More Tears by Ozzy Osbourne, and they've been using that to wipe their faces with. You know, it's just spread like wildfire. Yeah, so no work next week. Well, I have to go into work, but there will be no students or cadets. Sorry. So yeah, easy. So
All
I can
right.
just sit around.
That's all right for some, isn't it? Right.
Um,
All of that aside, then, like I said, celebrating 1981. So we're doing top 10. None of us know what each other have got either. So, it is a bit of a mystery. But I think I think the one thing worth mentioning though is that 1981, this isn't just metal, by the way, this is overall. 1981 isn't necessarily a classic year, I would say.
piss poor. Absolutely piss poor.
It's
I wouldn't quite go that far, but
it's yeah.
Okay, it's an incredibly piss poor year, but it's an incredibly important year.
yeah, that's true. And is it a piss poor year because of where it falls? 1980 was obviously a very strong year, which we'll get to at some point this year. And 81 is almost like the hangover to that. So is it really that
It's
bad?
1980 was the explosion to
Yeah.
no, actually no, I'll take it back. 1980 was the entrance. 1981 was the wandering about and the mingling and trying to work itself out, and then 1982 was the big explosion, I
Yeah.
think.
That's fair. That's fair to say. Well, look, I'm sure we'll come up with a decent list between us. So we'll start at number 10 as we always do. Who wants to jump in first? Because I'm intrigued.
I mean, I'll go first because it's a bit Route One, and I'll get this out of the way, and I suspect we will come again to this a bit later. I don't have a physical copy, but I'm sure that will be brought up as and when. But it's a damn good album, and it gets overlooked in the conversation a lot because of what happened next and what was very very strong, and that is High and Dry by Def Leppard.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one. I think, yeah, it's a worthy mention. We will come back to that one. Padre, where's your list start?
Number 10. It's, I've found it's a lot of straw clutching here, but I don't mind this album, and I think it's an important band at this stage. "Rockin' to Your Drop" by Raven.
Oh my God, I
Hey,
didn't see that coming.
I listened to it, I was like, I quite like this. And like, Raven, they've left a footprint. No, maybe not in terms of what they've created, but in who they've influenced.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I think that's what 81's really about. It's the work that came out may not be the most high level in terms of quality, but in terms of influence, a lot of the stuff that's come out in 81 and 80 has had a lasting impact. And the genre that we're talking about wouldn't be the same without a lot of the stuff that came out in those 2 or 3 years between 80 and 83. We'd be talking about a very different set of bands, I think.
Yeah, I mean, music, and we're not just talking heavy music either. That period of the very first couple of years of the 80s, it changed. There was such a drastic change. It's not like going from the 60s to 70s where it did change, but rock music, for instance, was largely similar. It just had a little bit more about it in the 70s, but 70s into 80s, everything fucking changed, didn't it? So it's
I've
formative
only
years,
really I've kept to just metal with this.
Well, of course you
I've
have.
Not,
It's all right because Old Man Reason can bring the variety.
Because I'm pure. Okay.
I Am Filthy, as one of these albums very much is, actually.
All right, we'll get to that in a minute. My number 10 is something a little more cheesy, and that's Paradise Theatre by Styx.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yes. Look, all joking aside, it's not that bad an album. Like Styx, all a bit proggy in the 70s, and then obviously in the 80s it went all very AOR. And this album is kind of like the bridge from that to that. And I think it's a little bit underrated. It's fucking cheese loaded, but it is full of bangers, right? And they know how to write a great ballad. So I stand by it. It ain't a bad album. It's not fucking tearing up trees, granted, but
see, I always thought when Mr. Styx trick. No,
a stick trick.
I think they missed a trick by not renaming themselves, and one of them calling themselves Sharon.
Well, yes, but I don't think they're that creative, to be fair. But yeah, that's my number 10 anyway. So let's move straight on then. Number 9's Padre, number 9. We got.
I've gone for a. It's not a studio release album, but I think it's quite an important album. It's No Sleep Till Hammersmith by Motorhead.
Yeah, see, I was going to put that in, but I didn't want to throw in a live album in case, but one of us was going to bring it up.
It's that good, though, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it is. It is. It is.
I've done the same, but I mean, I'm not going to argue with it. I mean, Christ, it's.
There's live albums. There's live albums we're always going to talk about, isn't there? There's Live After Death. There's Kiss Alive 2. All those, and No Sleep Till Hammersmith is one of the greats.
But I mean, and this is obviously obviously recorded at the Hammersmith. Motorhead, very very much a working class band at this time. It's 1981. England is the UK is in the thralls of Thatcher's monetarism experiment. Unemployment's rising. So Motorhead were the tonic for a lot of people. So that's why I put it in.
Well, if anyone was going to bring a political reason to it, it'll be you. So fair play. Let you have that one. Old Man Reason.
Number 9. Yes.
Number 9.
Number 9. Well, this is a bit of a curveball, but I'm including this because I listen to this album a lot, mainly when I work. But it's got to that point where it's become a favourite of that year. But I think it is quite an important record as well. And I've kind of already introduced it because it is the soundtrack to Escape from New York.
Oh, okay. So we're allowed soundtracks now. Are we fucking live albums first?
Yeah. Well, yeah. John Carpenter. I don't think Alan. Oh no, he did. He was associated with Alan Howarth from it, or Howarth, or whatever. But look, I mean, Carpenter did his own scores, did it for most of his stuff. With Alan. Obviously, previously it was all very piano based and a little bit synthy. I think this one was where there was a sort of notable shift, but I think it's an important record because whilst there were synthy scores before then, they were occasional, and this feels like the point where I think the 80s kind of embraced this from a soundtrack point of view.
Yeah.
Obviously, Vangelis did Chariots of Fire in the same year, and of course did Blade Runner the year after, didn't he? Which was, as wonderful as you get. But then you've got stuff like the Terminator, and and they're all following suit. And I think this is almost the sort of the template for that dystopian synth sci-fi that follow most of the decade. And of course, the film itself. The interesting thing about the film is you got four films. I think I've identified. You got this, Escape from New York, The Warriors,
Yeah.
Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, and I'm going to chuck Rollerball in there, although that was a little bit earlier. But there was this period in the early 80s where Italy basically decided to basically pay tribute slash remake every single film of those in some form or the other, bodge them all together, and they were all bloody awful. But they looked fantastic, and they pretty much sort of kept themselves going as a country just by making all those films. You got like Bronx Warriors 1990 and all sorts. And I think it kind of gives films like Escape from New York a bit more, I think, relevance and distinctiveness because they inspired other countries just to say we're making a film industry out of that film and that film.
Fucking fair play, nerd.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, okay. Well, I'll do a number 9 then. So this is a little bit of an off. This is where a band was sort of hanging on to the 70s, to be fair. Because going by the members, that's and that's it. So it's Blackfoot Marauder. Right. I love a bit of Blackfoot, right?
Blackfoot, yeah.
There's three. There's a run of 3 albums, and we talk about runs of 3 albums quite a lot. Strikes, Tomcatting, and this, and they're all, not world beaters, but in terms of like that southern bluesy hard rock, they're really up there. Ricky Medlock was in Skinner for about a year, and I believe he's back in whatever Lynyrd Skynyrd is again now. So there's obviously that influence, but they just had just fucking bangers. Like on this one, Too Hard to Handle has just got all this fucking swagger, and that sort of carries the whole album. And they're just a band that I think were underrated. I mean, I think this shifted about 1 million copies, which in '81 means fuck all. But it should have sold more. That like their early back catalogue, I say those 3 albums should have shifted more. They should have been bigger than they were. So I think if anything, I just want to shout them out because they're a fucking great band. And David Grudge, if you happen to be listening to this, I know you love them as well. So there you go.
They're not really part of the conversation very often, are they? But
no, they're not. But they should be.
Loved.
They absolutely should be. So if anybody hasn't heard them, and you like your sort of southern rock, anything from Crows and Conformity to the Black Crows, you'll be into Marauder. So check them out. 3 great albums: Strikes, Tomcatting, and Marauder. Get involved.
Yeah, but Crows are scared of ravens.
Right, now you're complicating it. Right, number 8. I'll go first. Number 8. Fuck it, I'll go straight in. Right. When you release one of the biggest selling albums of all time, the follow-up is never going to be easy. Right. And that album itself wasn't easy because when you bring in a new singer and then you still sell what happens to be the second biggest selling album of all time, again, like I said, the follow-up is always going to be a struggle. But AC/DC, for those about to rock. Now, we all know, obviously, the title track is massive for AC/DC. They've been closing their set with it now pretty much since this album came out, and it's always a great spectacle. But the album as a whole, I think, doesn't get as much love as it probably should do. But the face I'm getting from Old Man Reason here is a bit kind of.
Look, when it comes to AC/DC, I'm not like a huge fan. I know people love them and they're one of those. I like some of their stuff, kind of thing. I mean, I think 70s AC/DC is peak. Absolutely,
I completely agree with that.
And I will come along and say, there's been nothing memorable for me for nearly 45 years. And I've maybe I'm a bit unfair, but I've never really got massively along with For Those About to Rock. For me, that's kind of almost like the start of their treading water phase. Back in Black is the last great album worth listening to for me. Ooh. But I can maybe dive back in and see if my tastes have changed a bit. But having said that, like I say, I do like AC/DC, and again, the Bon Scott era, we'll always love. I treated myself to a dad present over Christmas.
Oh, hello.
Which I did mention actually separately, but it was one of those one of those sort of fancy box sets. But there you go. You got a pint glass, as you can see, and it came with an AC/DC lager, which was all right actually. Nothing amazing, but pleasant enough. But
Was it
yeah,
not a can of Foster's in a different package?
well, I would say yes, but it didn't taste like Foster's. I know like Foster's, so and nice little box, all that with that just to hold it in. So
Looks like a lunchbox.
overall, yeah, 10 quid. But I looked at that, I thought that's going to be useful for something, and this is good vinyl display decoration because it's my vinyl cleaning gear. So there you go. There's something I like about them.
Fucking hell! All right, fair play. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, I think you're right about For Those Who Bounce to Rock. The rest of the songs on the album get overshadowed by the title track because the title track is such a great song.
Let's Get It Up is a great song as well, and it's a song that AC/DC still play live now. So
I like Night of the Long Knives on that album, and the second track, Put Your Finger On, which is we all know what that's about.
Look, we all know AC/DC aren't known for their subtlety, are they?
Yeah, I Put My Finger On You, and like, no, yeah, okay.
All right, Brian, we get it.
It's I also agree. 70s AC/DC is
of course,
and it's not like they're treading water in the 80s and the 90s. They're just releasing albums that have always got one song on, and it goes into the live set. I mean, how many other songs off Thunderstruck are in the live set? It's just that one song, and again, it's like they come up with Razor's Edge. Sorry. Yeah, they come up with that. They come up with albums that are just like meh, but they've always got one song that's worth putting in the live set and seeing live. Like Stiff Upper Lip is a crappy album, but they opened up with it when we went to see them in Milton Keynes.
Yeah,
and live that song worked.
I don't mind Stiff Upper Lip as an album. To be fair, of the later stuff, it's one of the better ones. But yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. I never thought about it that way, but you're 100% right.
I mean, to be fair,
you don't need. When you're a band like AC/DC and you've got that back catalogue, you don't need to keep putting out bangers or massive albums, especially when you've sold that many albums on Back in Black, and then obviously and everyone's gone back and bought Highway to Hell and everything like that. So you just need to be able to keep touring, and that's when you're playing to 200,000 people at River Plate and all that kind of stuff, or 500,000 people in Moscow. Do you really need that much more critical acclaim from albums?
No, of course you don't. No. Reason you were saying?
No, I was just going to mention that when on that point, whenever I'm cooking a roast chicken, I always end up singing "Cover You with Foil."
That's it. I'm off. Fuck this. Someone else give us number 8 then.
A month of these to catch up on.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Go on then, number 8. What's next?
Number 8 for me, yeah. Okay, this isn't on vinyl actually, so I don't know how I can display a CD very well from here. But a band who's, funny enough, their punk stuff, like their older punk stuff, not quite so keen on. It's a bit too abstract and weird, so maybe it's pure post-punk. But I think when they started to embrace pop songs a bit more, I think that's where I gained my interest, and I think this onwards and some later albums is where I'm more interested. But yeah, this is a damn good album, and probably has their most iconic song, and that is Juju by Susie and the Banshees.
Oh, hello. Oh, classy touch.
Spellbound, Arabian Nights, Sin in My Heart. Yeah, I mean, if you like Susie, then you'll agree with that. But yeah, I mean, it's not all like pop, I have to say. There's a lot. They still got that weirdness, that sort of like, we're dancing around the fire and talking bollocks kind of vibe to them. But yeah, this is where it's started to branch out into the kind of sound that I like, I think. Yeah, definitely.
Well, at least someone brings a bit of culture to this. Which, going Padre now for number 8, I'm sure we're not going to get.
No, I mean, look, 81 is 2 years before everyone had their balls to the wall. So what needs to come before that? denim and leather.
Yeah.
You know, and
Fucking love denim and
because
leather.
denim and leather brings us all together.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, once you've got denim and leather, then the stage was set, because then you could have London Leather Boys 2 years later from Accept. So there's a theme here, and you know, I'm sure like Biff Bifford sat and he called a meeting at a pub somewhere in the countryside, and Rob Halford came along, and they said, right, we need to do more songs about leather, and Rob Halford was like, yes, I'm in there. So.
Look, in fairness,
it's a great album. I do have it on vinyl, but it's back in the UK. I've got the single too as well, actually.
Yeah, I've got it. It's top 20 for me.
It's a seminal album. We know that certain Danish amateur tennis players were giving it a lot of attention in 1981. So yeah, it's an important album.
Saxon, they're one of those bands, right? That they get quite a lot of stick, Saxon, but people need to remember how important they are. Like everyone talks about Maiden and whatnot, but Saxon were there a long time before that, and
Saxon have got some great riffs.
They got great fucking songs. This album is packed full of them. Look, 747 Strangers in the Night is an absolute worldie. It really is. And when they play it now, it's still a fucking banger all these years later. So, and Biff he's just he's up there, isn't he? He's a metal god. He really is. You know,
they were a bit older, weren't they? Because they've been sort of
yeah.
for a while doing other things. I think the kind of sort of metal they played was still very 70s rock, and I think they allowed New Wobham to be a bit more accessible to the older bloke crowd. You know, it wasn't just for youngsters and all that energy. It allowed, you know, they could feel, people who were maybe dads at that point could feel like they were still part of something.
Yeah, dad rock before it became dad rock, you mean?
Yeah,
basically. But yeah, look, they deserve a huge amount of credit, Saxon. They really do. Legendary band, and Biff's been sick recently, isn't he? So hopefully, you know, he gets well soon. They're back headlining the Thursday night at Bloodstock this year as a sort of special one-off, and I think that's only right as they headlined the first year. So fuck yeah, Saxon deserve all the credit they get and more. Number 7, Old Man Reason.
right. Okay, well, this is where I joined the dark side.
Hello.
And I'm not just talking pop music, which it is. Yeah, it is. Now we mentioned that this wasn't a strong year for metal and heavy rock, but 1981 is arguably the strongest year album-wise for synth pop. Now we all know I love a bit of my synth pop.
You've mentioned it once or twice.
Yeah, but when people talk about the key albums of those early years and that particular sound, invariably they would have been released in 1981. So there's a small number in here actually, but they're great albums. And this first one, yeah, it is a classic. You know, regardless what people might think of this sound. So it's this Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret by Soft Cell. Obviously, rest in peace, Dave Bell. But look, we all know Tainted Love, which was the cover of the old Motown song. You can't knock that. Say Hello, Wave Goodbye.
Yeah,
we all know that. But this is historically, there's a track called Sex Dwarf, and historically, it's had a bit of a amusement thrown at it. The thing is,
I wonder why.
Yeah, but you listen to that, it's driving. There's a solid beat. There's that, you know, decent sort of synth sound going on. It is arguably ripe for a cover by Carpenter Brooke.
Oh,
he would nail that. You plug that into a few more modern tech. Oh, it would boom.
Like send the email.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some great stuff on this album, really is. And again, obviously you've got that sort of working class lads just making straightforward music and singing about what they know, you know, the ordinary stuff and the dirty stuff. But yeah, this there's a very it's the seediest album you'll hear around this period. But there's a lot of like proper, earnest, honest stuff that's worth listening to.
Right, Padre, bring it back round.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is at this point in the countdown. This is where I started using my new proprietary In the Abyss metal album descriptors. Right. So we have we have 9 bands, not bands as in music, bands as in like descriptive bands. There's 4 parts. So the assessment scales are vocals and lyrics, guitar solos and melodies, riffs and hooks, and then overall production. And then each one of those has a descriptor for each numbered band. So I know, and if any of our listeners happen to be English language teachers, they're going to be like, Padre, you've just ripped off the fucking IELTS test. I have, yeah. Exactly what I've done. But I've made it more fun. So basically, this album I gave 5, 8, 6.5, 8. So that's a band score of about 7, which is good. It's good enough for a spousal visa for the UK. It's Fair Warning by Van Halen.
Nice. That did tickle my top 10, to be fair.
Yeah, I gave it so for example, with a Van Halen album, right, you're always going to be easy to give it an A for guitar solos because it's A, right? And the melodies. And the guitar playing on this album is great. And some of the harmonics and stuff are fantastic. The riffs are okay. But Van Halen, because he's such a virtuoso guitar player, it's not always about the riffs. The production's fine, but the lyrics are just silly. I mean, Dave Lee Roth, he's got so little to say sometimes. And, it's Eddie doing the heavy lifting. Like some of the lyrics are just, I was listening to it, so this is cringeworthy, Dave.
What do you expect?
I know, but it's just, no, it's bad. It has not aged well at all. The lyrics and the vocals, they've not aged at all. But there's a couple of good riffs and some decent songs. So yeah, but it's not 1984. It's not the debut album. It's not Van Halen 2.
It's their strongest album that came out between the debut and 1984 out of that batch.
That's probably not a bad shout. It's probably better than Van Halen 2 for me.
Oh God, yes.
Again, when you release a debut that strong, the follow-up is just never going to live up to it, is it? So, we said it before, Van Halen were a stadium rock band before they were a stadium rock band, and that debut album screams that, doesn't it? That is not an album that is a band playing in sweaty clubs. That's straight to Wembley Stadium. So
yeah.
I mean, they supported Black Sabbath, didn't they, in '78, and just embarrassed them.
Yeah. So there you go. But right, my number 7. A band that many would consider were on the sort of downward slope by this point, but I think the final album of this period for them, or their final album, really, for me, is one of my favourites. But this one in particular, Renegade by Thin Lizzy. Now, it's an odd one, Renegade, because there's lots of weird songs on it. Everything from fucking sort of Spanish influence stuff and blues, obviously, and there's bits of metal, and it is a little bit awkward. But I think it's Thin Lizzy playing with the concept a little bit of what Thin Lizzy were. By the time they got to Thunder and Lightning, which was pretty much just a fucking straight up, almost a metal album, this is a bit of a crossover, and I don't think it gets enough credit. It's by far and away, no way is it one of their best albums, but I think it deserves its place and deserves a bit of credit. So, and I thought I owned it on vinyl, but apparently I don't. So, thought I did, but I couldn't find it. Fucking got everything else with Thin Lizzy, but I thought I had that, so that'll be one to go shopping for when I've had a few beers, I'm sure.
Not even then.
Oh yeah. Right, number 6. Right, I'll just get it quick. My number 6 was Denim and Leather, so we've already just talked about that. So,
well, you got that's Wheels of Steel.
Wheels of Steel, sorry.
Yeah, because they had 2 albums in '81, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah, I picked up the wrong fucking record. Never mind.
Professionalism, as
Oh,
ever.
just at its finest. The problem with Saxon, right, is all their albums are always cheap to pick up on vinyl. So you see a
Yeah.
Saxon album, think, I'm going to have that. I'll probably never listen to it, but I'll have it anyway. And that's one of those
Well,
situations.
not the innocence is not no excuse, I hope.
Well, it is what it is. But I'll hold. I'll move on to you two for number 6. So you going first.
I chose High and Dry by Def Leppard.
Well, that's my number 5. So let's come back to let's do Reason first, and then we'll do High and Dry in one hit.
Okay. More pop,
Of course.
of course, but we're on for new wave, American new wave part as well, so potentially a little bit more acceptable to our listeners. This band,
Tregenza, get Bean on the phone. Let's get him back.
God, Bean,
He'll just bring jazz.
God, yeah, well, no, it'd be top 10 Crass albums or something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Look, no, this is a great album, banger after banger, and this band, they had a proper cult fan base in America, did well over there, but pretty much didn't touch the British charts. I think just because obviously we had so much of our stuff with the British invasion over there, American pop just didn't really make an impact for this kind of stuff. But their singer did a few years later, and this album deserves a lot more love, and that is Beauty and the Beat by the Go-Go's.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Wonderful album.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, no, We Got the Beat. Our Lips Are Sealed, which was co-written by Terry Hall, God bless him. This Town, which, fun enough, I first heard for the first time back in '97 because there was a bootleg cover of it performed by Jonathan Davis and Amy Echo.
Fucking
But oh no, there's so many great songs. If you like your sort of new wavy, power poppy, punkish kind of girl harmonies, this is the one.
Look, you were always coming from the left field. I know that, but I wasn't expecting that one. So fair play to you.
Yeah, I got that recently. Actually, I've always loved that album, but it's like, oh, I need that on vinyl. So
well, fair play. Well, let's talk about High and Dry then, shall we? Because this is the third time.
Yes.
This is at the moment. This is the only album that all three of us have had in the top 10. So, yeah, it's my 5. But Padre, what is it? Because obviously, the early Def Leppard stuff, we can talk about Hysteria and Pyromania till the cows come home. But this one kind of sits a little bit awkward because the debut was still quite raw, and then Pyromania is like just as slick as it gets, and then this sits in the middle. So, where does it stand?
I mean, going back to the trusty descriptors, vocals and lyrics was 7.5 for me. It's good. Good lyrics, good vocals. Solos and melody 6.5. There's a few nice touches on this album, I think, but nothing fantastic. The riffs and the hooks, there's some good riffs, I think. And overall, I mean, after the first album, I think with Def Leppard, the production's always bang on, and especially when they get Mark Lang in. So the production I gave an 8. So it's just I know Pyromania and Hysteria a lot better than this album. So I've listened to it a few times, and it's great. It's great. It's not fantastic. If you're a band like that and that's your second album, you're not doing that much wrong.
No.
And you're on a good trajectory. And I think that's when you listen to those early Def Leppard albums, you can see it building.
Oh yeah, there's a natural progress, isn't there?
Yeah.
And we Voice and I argued about Pyromania and Hysteria, didn't we? But I like this album because it's still got a little bit of crunch and a little bit of dirt to it. It's almost like it's just right, because like Hysteria was probably a touch too far. I know it's obviously very much a mid-80s record.
Statement of the year, and it's only January.
But Pyromania was probably just right. But High and Dry, it's just got that little bit of working class Sheffield. Their roots are still there.
Another Hit and Run is a great song.
Yeah, and obviously this gave us Bring On the Heartbreak. So that was kind of like their big breakthrough moment in the US, which then it all changed. Then it's blowjobs under the stage and all sorts. So
Yeah, it's. I mean, I haven't read enough about Mutt's veering towards that production and how it happened from a technological level. I maybe will one day, but we know what kind of a producer he was even by that point because of AC/DC.
yeah,
But he knew even at that point that they needed a little bit more sheen to it, but he didn't bring it on too much. Like you say, they kept that
yeah,
crunch, that rawness, that rock, that earthiness, I would say. And so you've got a good blend of those two. I mean, look, I love Pyromania. It's one of my favourites, but it is a very, it's a pop album
yeah,
from a
it is.
production point of
Of course
view.
it is.
Whereas this is, they're both the same albums, I think, but this is the rock sort of version of Pyromania, right,
Yeah.
in some ways. But I mean, I love Lady Strange.
Well, we've heard this, but what do you think about the album?
Well,
Right, so hang on, that was my number 5 when it's a you two, yeah, Reason number 5.
number 5. I've got to consult my list. Right. Well, I mean, more pop, I'm afraid. But this is going to be unsurprising, isn't it? Really, to be fair,
Words need to be had, I think.
It's look. No, this is a great debut, even though it's technically not this band's debut, but the one they were sort of lumped with, and that is "Speak and Spell" by Depeche Mode.
All right, you're always going to drop a Depeche Mode.
Come on, yeah.
Possible. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, this is a Vince Clarke album before he thought, oh, I don't like this. It's a lot of attention. I'm going. Leave the other lads to think, what do we do now? And well, they obviously worked out in the end. But yeah, again, lots of little sort of Casio sounding pop bangers on here. We all know Just Can't Get Enough, but New Life is great. There's a track called Photographic, which is probably my favourite on the album, which again is quite a moody, upbeat little number at the same time. But it's interesting because obviously they were seen as the runt of the litter for quite some time. Like, oh, they've got some good songs, but not really going to do anything. And then obviously, after realizing they had to sort themselves out, and they tried a few things, some failed miserably, and then realized that sounding like a German industrial band might be the best option. And after that, everything
the rest
came
is
good.
history. But they didn't do enough to improve Basildon, and that's the major problem here.
Well,
because look, I didn't go to Basildon in 1981, but I can guarantee it was a shithole, and it's still a fucking shithole now. So, they need to be held up. They need to be held accountable for not doing enough to improve Basildon. But there you go. That's my gripe. Padre number 5.
We've done it. AC/DC.
Moving on. All right, then tell you what, give us your number 4.
Okay, so my top 4 is not really a top 4. It's just four albums because I think for particular reasons for all 4 of them they're seminal. So I've got some notes here because I think this is possibly one of the most important albums come out in that decade. So I think it's it's probably one of the most yeah. So because I haven't got room to stick it up on the wall in front of me. So it's one of the most, I'd say it's one of the most important albums in heavy metal history, because it's basically lays down the rule book for anything that's not traditional heavy metal, especially at that time. And it's Welcome to Hell by Venom.
Someone had to put it in there. I was never going to put it in there because I think Venom are generally fucking awful, but that's going to get me shot.
But again, I think the point I would make with this album, and I agree with you, I'm not putting this in because it's like, holy shit, the production is amazing and the guitar. Yeah. So it's what the album leads to.
Yeah.
All the other bands. So it's like you don't judge an album like Welcome to Hell on its musical merit alone. It's a foundational myth. It's like a creation story. No, because look at all the stuff it's influenced. That after that, just in terms of the aesthetic, the fact that you've got band members who don't have to use their real names. They come up with these names taken from antiquity or theology and stuff like that. The pentagram, the public reaction to it. The fact that they're from fucking Newcastle, it's just
That hotbed of black metal. Yeah.
Yeah, Sabbath have their moments where it's dark and it's brooding and it's evil, but I think
Well, pause for effect. There you go.
Has he just been struck by Satan's bolt?
Yeah, I think he has, hasn't he? Either that
Oh,
or he's oh, fuck, I'm gonna have to fucking edit this now. Fuck.
no, this works. This is great. This is.
Yeah, this is what happened. Kronos is just fucking just. It's
I mean, to be fair, I mean, he's right about the textbook of a potential, because a couple of years later, Bathory came along and said, "Let's do this, but good."
That's I think I'd say that's a fair shout. To be fair, I mean, look, even oh look, he's gone. Even the Bathory debut has got its faults. It's raw as fuck as you want it to be, but yeah, but I'm right purely from an objective point of view, like yeah, from an influence point of view and everything about it and what came after it, yeah, I would put Bathory up there more so than Venom, because I don't know, maybe there's just more kudos, maybe, but whether it is because they're Norwegian, I don't know, but it's whatever. But yeah, anyway, so you're back then. You decided to rejoin us.
So I got cut short because I was talking about satanic bands.
Yeah, yeah, we won't edit that. That works very well.
No, like I said, I think Venom deserve a mention. I think they deserve to be in the mix. But again, it's like with the caveat that it's not like a musical masterpiece. It's what it contributes to the genre of metal.
It's a moment in metal history, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can't fault them for that. We wouldn't have. We wouldn't. There's so much metal we wouldn't have if it wasn't for Venom. And
I do favour black metal a bit more. I think they just. I don't want to say they honed their sound a bit better and the songwriting was a bit better, but I think it just feels a bit more. I don't know.
A slightly more polished turd, but
maybe yeah. Well,
yeah. So yeah,
I've got that on vinyl. So yeah.
Reason number 4.
Number 4. Well, I mean, I dug it out on vinyl, but I suspect it's going to pop up later. But it's my number 4, and it's Killers by Iron Maiden.
All right, let's come back to that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm surprised that's all right. Right, okay. Look, yeah, we will come back.
Yeah, well, that's how strong I see the others, which is going to be controversial, but there we go.
All right. My number 4 then. New wave of Canadian heavy metal. It was a very small wave, merely just like a trickle, just kind of just over your toes, kind of thing.
A spunk.
Yeah, bit of that. But I do really, again, a lot of what's in my top 10 is albums that I don't think have had enough credit, and bands that should have been a lot bigger than they were, and whether it was just timing or whatever it was. But I think this is one of those bands. It's Triumph, Allied Forces.
Bloody hell, you have to come at me for.
I almost put that in.
Left field choices.
No, this was Triumph's kind of breakthrough moment. It was again another million seller, but they never sort of capitalized on it, and that's the disappointing thing. They could have and should have gone on to be huge, and I think if they weren't Canadian, there may have been more opportunity for them. It wasn't exactly a hotbed of heavy metal.
I don't think we can be having a pop at Canadian hard rock music in 1981 somehow.
What else came out in 1981?
Well,
okay, yeah. Look, I was never going to put them in my top 10, so yeah, we'll come back to that. But look, they're back together as well. Triumph, they're reforming this year and going back on tour, original lineup. So it's a fucking good album, and they're named after an old fucking British Leyland car. So well, they're not, but they are, if you know what I mean.
The motorbike as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm more interested in the fucking Triumph Dolomite that my mum used to drive around in the 80s. Bright yellow with a black vinyl roof.
Jesus.
Yeah. All right. Are we on number 3 now?
No. Yes.
There you go. There's that professionalism coming through again. Padre, number 3.
Diary of a Madman by Ozzy.
Okay. Yeah, see, we briefly discussed this before we recorded, didn't we? And neither myself or Voice had this because we don't believe it's a classic, but go on.
Top 20. I think
again, not saying it's a classic. Just I think that along with Venom and some of the other albums that came out in 1981 for metal, all contribute to the scene. I think, and I think it was just to have Ozzy around again doing the solo stuff. It was important that he came up with a second album that proved he wasn't a one-hit wonder. It's some of Randy's solos are really good on there, and obviously, sadly, that it's Randy's last album with Ozzy. Yeah. It's not fantastic. There's a couple. I mean, I do like the song "Diary of a Madman," and Little Dolls is good. Over the Mountain, yeah.
Over the Mountain's a classic. Love Over the Mountain.
The rest of it's just it's good enough that he wasn't going to then fade into obscurity.
Yeah.
And then obviously we get other things like Bark at the Moon and things like that. But you get Ozzy. He's there. He's making money. He continues. That's fine. That's what we needed. You know.
It's the thinking man's favourite Ozzy album, I think.
Ooh.
There's some interesting stuff on there, and you know, again, I think I've warmed to it a bit more in recent years than I did. Production's better than the debut, absolutely.
Yeah,
I would say. No, I think it's a top 20 for me. But I know it's got its fans. So.
Oh yeah, it's gonna have its fans, isn't it? No, it deserves to be in any list. Obviously, anything that Ozzy, well, most of it deserves to be in a list. So it's fair enough, but
it's a bit.
It's not
sad
what I ever listened to either. So you know,
it's a bit ironic that the second track is got one of Randy Rhoads' best solos on it, and it's called "Flying High" again.
Yeah, it's just fucking.
Do you know what? Like, if the guy that crashed that plane hadn't been killed in the crash, he should have been given the death penalty for what he took away from us, from his stupidity.
That's bleak.
But this is the thing. If you think about we 86 we lose Cliff, and everyone goes, oh, what would have happened? Not even that if he had stayed in Metallica, but he was that good a musician. What would have happened if Randy was still with us, or had done another 4 or 5 albums, or done a solo album, or something like that? I mean, it does really, and I think as well. Sorry, you wouldn't have I don't think the 80s would have been dominated by Van Halen if Randy Rhoads had been there, because there would have been another. If Diary of the Madman is the thinking man's Ozzy album, I would say Randy Rhoads is the thinking man's virtuoso, whereas Eddie Van Halen is the down the pub virtuoso. That's not to say that Eddie Van Halen is anything wrong with his playing, but Eddie Van Halen is definitely the mainstream virtuoso because they're putting out more pop hits, right? Or bigger hits. They're the stadium band.
Yeah.
Like Randy Rhoads is definitely a bit more of a thinking man's player, I think. But they've both got that really strong classical musical influence. And it would have been quite that's the guitar battle you want to see, Van Halen versus Randy.
Well, it's probably happening up there somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're probably if they are around, they're probably looking down at me going, "Who's this cunt?"
Keep your fucking opinions to yourself. Yeah, fair enough. Right, where does that leave us? Someone take control.
Someone's still number 3.
Number 3. Well, number 3. Yeah, well, number 3. All right, who's next? I am actually sober, believe it or not, despite the fact that I'm on. So this evening I'm on the obviously as usual on the Radio City Beer Works. I'm on the Working Man tonight, which is a lovely little 5.5% drop. Absolutely delightful because it's a Friday night and I work Saturday, so we have to take it a little bit easy. What are you drinking, old man Reason?
Well, funny enough, I'm drinking, as you say, the Radio City Brews for 2112.
There you go.
Very slowly because it's an 8%.
Yes, very slowly. Spread it over about 3 days.
Yes, I thought I would. Yeah, that might be appropriate to drink tonight.
Yes. Well, all right, we'll come to that. But look, rcbw.shop, you can get this shit online. So, because it's fucking great. But it carried me through Christmas, this stuff. And it's still carrying me now.
The mince pies are gone, but the beer's still here.
Yeah, there's a couple of cans left. My 15-year-old hasn't stolen these ones, so
he wouldn't steal this.
he loved the 2112. It was his favourite one. If I drank that when I was 15, I've been on my back.
Like the old
Right.
underground pills, isn't it?
Number three. All right, I'll tell you, I'll do my number three.
You did.
The only sort of non-ish rock album on it. Well, it is not. It's not rock. It isn't. Of course, it isn't. Prince Controversy. Naughty album. Naughty album. Well, I think this is that point where Prince starts to get sleazier and naughtier. You know, Do Me Baby, Jack You Off, all of that.
Oh.
Naughty songs. Obviously, the title track's great. But there is also Ronnie Talk to Me, Ronnie Talk to Russia as well, which is just completely out of left field when you compare to the rest of the album. But I love Prince, big fan of Prince. Was lucky enough to see him live in 2007, I think it was, when he did that massive residency at the O2. Absolutely fucking incredible. So if we're going to pull 1981, this album has to be in there because it's fucking Prince. We're talking about guitar virtuosos in fucking Van Halen and Randy Rhoads. Prince is up there as well. That man could fucking shred. And Padre, I know you agree with me.
Yeah, no, he can, and he's got look. It's Prince. He's got probably one of the coolest looking custom guitars ever.
Yeah.
Like I really want to know what's in this vault. But you know, when he died, there's like apparently there's hours and hours of
so much music,
recorded material, and they can't do anything with it because there's so many people trying to get involved in the estate that they can't get permission or the rights to publish it. So
it's a bizarre situation, that.
Yeah, and also I really like watching Prince interviews when he basically he has a go at a lot of people. He doesn't name names, but you know, first he's having digs at Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
he's having digs at a lot of, but he's like, he was very much really, I think he begrudgingly made singles, but he was there's an interview and he talks about what happened to albums, whatever happened to them, why don't we do albums anymore? He was very much about the complete piece of work.
Yeah,
the album is your vision. Like he wants you. He goes, I don't like singles because I want you to sit down and listen to the whole album. The whole album is my piece of work. That, you know, if you just listen to one song in it, you're not getting the whole picture. Which is a fair point.
Yeah, it is. And I think the term musical genius gets thrown around a lot with a lot of musicians, but he is one of those people. And you've got to bear in mind that a lot of this it's all him. Like Controversy, virtually all of it. Obviously, he's written it, but he's recorded virtually every instrument on this album. It's pretty much all him with a few guests here and there.
Yeah, but
you know, he's just a phenomenal human being.
The other thing is like David Bowie, he would just write songs for other people and then phone them up and go, "I've got a song for you. Do you want to come to this shit?" Like "Feel for You" by Chaka Khan.
Yeah,
like he wrote that for her, and that's a decent track. And you don't know it's Prince, but when you find out it's Prince and then you listen to it again, you think, "Yeah, okay,
makes total sense." Yeah. Yeah. Reason? Any views?
Probably an artist I sort of need to listen to a bit more. I mean, funny enough, I like the singles, but never dived in more. So maybe one day.
Prince has got some waffle in his back catalogue. He definitely has, because when he goes off on one and he gets a little bit self-indulgent, some of it is a bit much. But when he hit the nail, you know, Controversy, Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, all these albums, they are just phenomenal.
That's it. I've never listened to Purple Rain, but I have a policy that I don't listen to a soundtrack until I've watched the film. So I've still not seen the film.
Yeah, I get that. I think with Purple Rain, you can take that as a standalone album outside the movie. So you know, at the moment, obviously, Purple Rain is very much in the public eye, isn't it? But yeah, you know, I love him. I think he's incredible. By the time he got to Sign of the Times and he's starting to go down a much more controversial and topical route, it just showed what he was all about. He wasn't just about the naughty stuff. He had something to say as well. You know,
yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the people he wrote songs for: Sheena Easton, Chaka Khan, Sheila E., Stevie Nicks, The Bangles, Manic Monday. That was Prince.
Yeah.
Art of Noise, featuring Tom Jones, Kiss. Oh, that was later on. Patti LaBelle, Sinead O'Connor.
Nothing
Obviously,
compares
that's the
to
most
you. Yeah,
famous one.
yeah.
Nothing Compares to You. So yeah, I mean that right there. You're writing songs with Stevie Nicks, the Bangles, and Sinead O'Connor. There's different genres.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the genius lays.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. All right, we better move on, otherwise this is just going to turn into a fucking Prince loving. Who's next with what?
Number 3, me.
Number 3, you.
Number 3, me. I do have this album, but it's part of a nice box set, so I can't flash it up on its own. But I'm going to get into trouble with this, but I don't care because I stand by this debut album all day long. Too Fast for Love, Motley Crue.
Yeah, I had a feeling that would come up.
Banger.
This is where you need Bean, because Bean would back you up on that.
Oh yeah, I know that. Look, it is a banger. Every song is a banger. I don't care, quite frankly. The energy on that album,
Yeah.
scuzzy, sleazy, glammy metal, punk influence. There's a reason they took off so much at that point in time.
This was before Motley Crue became complete cunts.
Yes.
So
I mean, they always were. But
yeah, but
they at least recognised that they had to make good songs to get somewhere.
Yeah, and if I'm going to choose, if we were sitting here choosing my favorite Motley Crue album, it would be that. I mean, that's like picking my favorite STD, but that it would be Too Fast for Love. So I get it, I do get it, but yeah, fucking Motley Crue. It's one of that Crue were probably the first heavy band that my kids were listening to when they were little. So weirdly, so yeah. Fair play.
That's because you kept reading them the filth rather than posting back. Father, please.
Tell me more about Bullwinkle.
Please read us a story. There you go. Sit down, children. I'm going to tell you about the time Ozzy Osbourne did a line of ants. What's a line, Father?
Yeah, my kids never called me father.
It's something grown-ups do to give themselves a sense of worth.
Yeah.
What's your daughter calls you something, doesn't it? It was quite amusing.
Bazza, they call me. Barry. No idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's something he doesn't like, but yeah, we won't discuss.
No. What I do is when these kids call him that, I call them names of my choice, and they don't like it. So I said, well, don't do it to your father.
Right. Have we all done number 3? I've completely lost fucking track of this.
Yeah.
Right, number 2 then. Who's going? Reason, go on. Number 2.
Okay. Do you want the Young Ones intro or the Gorillaz intro?
Well, what do you think?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Young Ones.
Yeah, Young Ones. Right. Okay. Well, he's scratching his bloody eye. So, right. Hang on. Let's have a look.
He's probably got conjunctivitis.
Well, exactly. Yeah. There you go. Didn't see that coming.
You can only do that once.
Oh, damn it. Anyway, pop music.
Of course.
Does anyone like the Human League?
Cunt. You absolute cunt.
Look, I mean, this is as iconic a pop music record you are going to get.
Agreed.
It's that good. It really is. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Don't You Want Me, Love Action, The Sound of the Crowd, which, just one of my favourites. But it's, there's some ebb and flow in this. There's some interesting stuff and sounds. And obviously, considering where they came from previously, they started out as a trio, did all the experimental synthy stuff in the late 70s, quite dystopian, quite quirky. I mean, their first album, Reproduction, is probably my favorite of theirs, probably one of my favorite albums of the 70s. Obviously, with the whole sort of skyscrapers popping up all over Sheffield, very Ballardian, etc. And of course, then they split up. The other two went on to form Heaven 17, and also released Penthouse and Pavement in this same year, which was a damn good album, top 20 for me, but not as good as this. But yeah, he got another chap in, got the two lasses to do the singing and the dancing, and again give that pop sheen, because that's what he had the potential for. And yeah, what a record! But I will point out that 6 years before Anthrax, they did a song about Judge Dredd called "I Am the Law" on this, which is very, very different, quite slow, quite minimalistic. But yeah, they were ahead of the game. Yes, thoroughly recommended.
Padre, please bring it back.
I know, and I will, because if there's one thing that Human League don't like, it's mob rules.
Right, can we come back to that one, and we might celebrate that one separately. Well, we've already mentioned my number 2, so we may as well discuss it now. Killers. I mean, what do we need to say about Maiden that hasn't been said a billion times? But Killers is a funny one. It's probably quite low down on my Maiden album rankings, but like it almost stands out in Maiden's back catalogue because it's a weird album. Like there's hardly any choruses on it, and
No, it's right. It's for that. It is
it's Maiden's prog album.
We had a bit of a discussion about this because at one point I thought I might prefer it to the debut, but no, it's my least favourite of the '80s albums. But it's
I'd agree with that.
It's still in my as it stands. It's still in my top 100 metal albums of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no choruses, and there's some there, but I think there was obviously Harris and was working overtime with obviously the new guitarist Adrian Smith and Dave, and I think there was lots of things they wanted to do with the guitars, and I wonder sometimes if Paul Di'Anno, God bless him, just couldn't be bothered to bash out some choruses. It was just give us something to sort of keep us going and
yeah, the relationship was already probably quite sour by this point.
There, and I think it was, if anything, it's not a vocalist album for that reason. So that's why the others are sort of doing more, and you don't have that obvious chorus singing kind of thing that Bruce obviously brought into the fold big time the year after. Production obviously miles ahead of the debut, so it's got that on it. But yeah, it's saying all that, still a bloody great record.
It is a great record, and look, we talk about minimal choruses now. I mean, Murders in the Rue Morgue, obviously there's a bit of a chorus to that. But whenever I listen to Killers, and then when Maiden played it live in the summer, the title track, that's such a great song, and it's very different from what Maiden do anywhere else in their back catalogue, and it's just
possibly my favourite Maiden track.
Yeah, it's such a fucking great song. It really is. And yeah, I mean, to say it's your least favorite 80s Maiden album, I mean, like how do you how do you pick that? It's almost impossible. But because I could sit there and I could listen to Maiden's 80s albums, right? And I could go, right, that's my favorite. And then I'll do it again the next day and go, no, actually, that's my favorite.
It's like saying, that's my least favorite Radio City beer.
Well, there you go.
It's not impossible anymore. It's not impossible anymore to pick a favorite Maiden 80s album or any album if we use the band descriptors. This is what they're here for. It is a tool to objectively rate and score an album. Right now, Killers is my number 1. But so I agree with you, and it's just I think Killers establishes Maiden as the lead exponents of the new wave of British heavy metal group, and it's that, and it puts them very nicely. Again, it's what I said at the start of the episode. It may not be the best album, but it lays the groundwork for something else. It contributes to the genre in a very significant way. It influences a lot of people. Like Kerry King always talks about Killers.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And I agree with you again. The actual song Killers is great, and I think if you look back, let's say Maiden started to fade into obscurity because they don't get rid of Paul Di'Anno, you would say that Killers is Paul Di'Anno's finest hour. So,
I mean that goes to the debut for me, but. Yeah, there's an argument for both, I suppose. But yeah. Well, look, that's you done then. That's your number 1. The question is, should we let Old Man Reason have the final word in this? Should we take that risk?
No, I think I'll go now, and I think you should have. We know what your number one's going to be. That's fair. That's reasonable. I'll take the hit on this one.
Go on then. What is it?
Well, we've had the Working Man mentioned, and of course we've had the 2112 mentioned, but you cannot talk about 1981 without talking about Moving Pictures. Absolutely not. Their best album, genuinely. Not a single flaw. Wonderful production. You know, that blend of that sort of hard rock and that sort of new wave synthy 80s pop that's sort of all the vogue at the moment. And yeah, I mean, I can't really say much more about that other than to say it's up there, and it deserves to be up there for good reason.
Right. So Rush. Right.
Yeah,
I've been working through Rush in recent months. Because look, everyone knows my opinions on prog and whatnot, but I think Rush are a bit of a different animal to just writing them off as like we do with fucking Dream Theater and all that nonsense.
They don't. I mean, you got the odd. I mean, you got like the Camera's Eye. That's a 10-minute track.
Yeah,
It's not a common thing for them. I
no,
think
I mean you go
after a certain point anyway. I mean, it's
yeah,
either
the
like 20
'70s
minute
stuff.
songs or they don't.
Yeah, yeah, and look, Moving Pictures, it's a fucking great album. I would not argue that at all, and I am working through the back catalogue and I'm coming round to a lot of it. Some of it, some of that earlier '70s stuff is just no.
It's patchy, but
Yeah, it's just a bit too much. I might come back to it another time, but yeah, look, I was never going to put it in my top 10, but if I was really pushed for yeah, 100% it would be Moving Pictures.
that
You know,
that run, that 7 album run between 2112 in 76 and Grace Under Pressure in 84 is it's just it's one of those. It's one of those runs, I think.
7 albums in 8.5 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they're pretty much an album each year, but it's
yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say every album is a 5-star, but there's very little, you know, to moan about there. There's so much good stuff. And again, by the time you get to Signals and Grace Under Pressure, and they're practically an 80s, I don't want to say pop band, but you know, an 80s new wave band. I mean, I think Grace Under Pressure is my favorite album after this and 2112. You know, the harmonies and songs on that are just great. After that, it's a bit it's hit or miss, I think, for quite a few years. But I think the last album they did, Clockwork Angels, which was 2011.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, that was their best album for a very long time, I would say. But I know their fans can be quite intense, but they were fantastic.
Right, you can have your Rush moment. That's fair enough. Right, let's finish it off then and talk about Mob Rules. Right, so these two Dio albums. I know there was obviously Dehumanizer later on. I can never choose between Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. I think they are both phenomenal albums. And I know obviously it's Black Sabbath, it carries a Black Sabbath name, obviously it's post-Ozzy, all of that stuff. I mean, at the time, if you were a Sabbath fan and they get rid of Ozzy and bringing in Ronnie James Dio, it was probably like, it's not going to be any good. But when you can do that, a bit like AC/DC with Back in Black, when you can drop an album like Heaven and Hell and then follow it up again with Mob Rules,
Yeah.
like this is when you really know that Sabbath are special. We already know they've done those 8 albums, in particularly the first 5 or 6. But then to do Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules is just fucking unbelievable. And look, it's for me, this is pretty much a faultless album. And I think Heaven and Hell isn't far off that as well. My favorite Dio my favorite Dio era song is Falling Off the Edge of the World. And obviously that's on this album, so I think that helps. Fucking phenomenal piece of work.
Sign of the Southern Cross.
Sign of the Southern Cross is like it's like a forefather of epic metal.
Yeah. And okay, so the thing is as well, obviously Ozzy leaves and then they're like looking around, who do we get? Right. And you take Ronnie James Dio. So you take in someone who is well established, a very good singer, or one of the best singers, but also, where are you taking him from? He's just coming off working with Richie Blackmore.
Yeah.
Think of all that kind of experience and knowledge he's picked up from working with John Lord and Cozy Powell and those guys.
Yeah.
He comes into that band and he's going to bring all those fresh ideas with him. And then on this album, and I might be wrong, but I think it's one of the first times I've heard you hear Iommi using wah-wah pedals in some of his solos. So there's new ideas going on here. And again, it's like there are bands that you need in times of like 1981. So Maiden and all those other bands are kind of in their infancy. They won't be that big. Sabbath have disbanded as we know them. You need like some kind of refresh of Black Sabbath to keep the entire genre ticking over, because we're 2 years away from thrash, really. Diamond Head haven't broken yet. Motorhead are still going. That's good. They're the other band that are helping everything tick over. Without these bands, the genre just dips and it goes away. And then, everyone's just waiting for what's coming. We don't know what's coming. And then 2 years later, you get a resurgence. It was very much like, I think 81, 80 is our mid-90s.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot.
There
wasn't a lot of stuff going on there. Like, the big bands had gone soft. They're all trying to new stuff. Everyone was trying to be experimental, and we're like, "What's going on?" And then we start picking up on the Scandinavian stuff. Whether you like it or not, you've got new metal comes along, which means you get a resurgence in kind of festivals, and then you get Black Sabbath, Maiden, and Priest reform or bring back old members. And they kickstart everything again. That entire resurgence again at the end of the 90s, you can't minimize the effect of Bruce going back to Maiden and Halford going back to Priest, and Ozzy getting back involved with Ozfest in the UK and going back with Black Sabbath.
When you talk about it that way, that's like hairs on the back of your neck kind of stuff. Like that, I've never thought about that moment, like, because all three of those bands, you're talking within like 4 years, all that happened.
Yeah, and they all release out, and you get Angel of Retribution and Wicker Man or Brave New World. Sorry,
yeah,
good solid albums. It's not like Bruce is back in Maiden. Yes, it's a shit album. No, it's not. And then it reinvigorates the entire genre.
Yeah.
Because then you've got these bands get pushed back out front again, and they're big enough to pack out Milton Keynes Bowl, which means they can bring the smaller bands along with them.
Yeah.
I think
new metal doesn't get the exposure it needed in its infancy without Ozfest.
Yeah. I think the end of the 90s was symbolic in that regard, because we've spoken how the 90s just saw 80s pop culture and rock culture as complete anathema, just something to be ignored. And it's almost like, when it's over, we can do the 80s again because it was good. We can say that now.
Yeah.
It was. It's like, well, we know what was genuinely good, and this stuff's just getting a little bit. You know what? I wonder what the rock, the metal direction would have been like for this kind of stuff if Woodstock '99 hadn't happened as it did.
Yeah, again, it's one of those cultural moments, isn't it? That you do wonder. People dying at a young age. Certain things like that. It's everything could have been very, very different. But I'm blown away by that. The Maiden, Sabbath, Priest all reunite, and obviously, 10 years or so later on, Dio comes back to Sabbath again. The whole Heaven and Hell project. And again, lucky enough to see that. Never saw Dio solo, but I did see that in Plymouth Pavilions of all places. With Iced Earth and Lamb of God. Fucking what a trio that was. But just going back to Mob Rules, when Sabbath brought in Dio, they could have we just need to just kind of keep the status quo, carry on doing the Sabbathy stuff. But Padre, like you said, there was new stuff going on, and I think that's what makes these two albums so impactful.
Southern Cross is not a Sabbath song; it's a Dio song.
Yeah,
it sounds like something out of Rainbow.
Yeah,
and then there are songs there that definitely sound like Sabbath. So, but it's great. It's a quality album.
Yeah, it is. Well, there you go. That's fucking ends that on a fucking bombshell, doesn't it?
Can I just say one thing?
Oh,
so we didn't have Priest. None of us chose Priest, and I want to just thank you for that.
You fucking prick.
But
it wasn't their best album.
It's not.
But I did make some notes, and I looked around on forums and stuff. In the hallowed metal pantheon, Point of Entry stands not as a monument, but as a puzzling detour sign made of cheap plastic.
That's harsh. It's not that bad.
Sandwiched between the titanic British steel and the savage screaming of vengeance, this album is the sound of Judas Priest desperately trying to write radio-friendly hits and forgetting how to write Judas Priest songs. Gone is the molten steel and the leather-clad fury. In its place, a bland, mid-tempo plod of watered-down boogie rock and shockingly aimless songwriting. The songs heading out and to Highway briefly flirt with competence, but are just bogged down with cringeworthy choruses. So it's just Point of Entry is everything why I have problems with Priest in that regard, and I like Priest at the same time. Like I sat down and I listened to this album and I was just like, oh, it's this album again, because I went back and looked at my scoring for the Priest countdown. I can't get away from it. It's just like Battered Turbo Lover.
Was that a Reddit comment?
Had to be.
Amalgamate. What I did is I took like 3 or 4 Reddit comments and I put them into AI, and that's what it spat out.
Oh well.
That says
to be honest, actually, that's quite fitting, really, for that fucking album. So yeah. Some shout outs.
Well, some of the ones you mentioned would have been possible shout outs for me. I think most of it's been covered.
Like what? Like
well, Too Fast for Love was one for me that was kind of tickling, but
okay. Well, there's one thing funny Padre touched on, and I do want to mention because it's a good album, and that's Belladonna by Stevie Nicks.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, it's not rock, but it's something to stick on a Sunday afternoon and just lose yourself to. Some wonderful collaborations on that with the likes of Tom Petty and Don Henley. I mean, come on, Edge of 17, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah. To be fair,
there we go. But also, and I'm very surprised this wasn't on your list, Tregenza. Very surprised because it's top 20 for me. And that's Fire Down Under by Riot.
Yeah, it tickled. I think the problem with the album is it starts really strong. It's really front heavy, and then it does it fades a little bit for me. So it was like 10 or 11. It was between that and Sticks. I went with Sticks just to be different.
Right.
I mean, I do have Fire Down Under on vinyl as well, so that would have been useful.
The number one in 1981, the number one single when I was born was Sheena Easton, For Your Eyes Only, which is the
that's a good one to have, actually. So.
And I've always wanted to go to that, the Greek monastery at the end of that film, and I've always wanted to go there and just throw some Russians off the top. Actually, no, what I would like to do is go up up to the top of that monastery and throw Point of Entry off the top. That's right, smash it.
Right, that's it on that bombshell. You've got to speed it up, you've got to slow it down, you've got to stay metal. We'll see you next week. Cheers.